Moody. I'm a senior financial advisor and partner at Lebel Harriman Retirement. We're a financial advisory firm based up in Portland, Maine. I have worked at Lebel Harriman since I was an intern a little over 10 years ago. And one of the first systems I was ever introduced to, even as an intern, was RPAG. So we've been a member for, I think, close to 15 years now. And our firm has very much grown alongside RPAG. It's been a very exciting journey, and I feel like we're just getting started. Yeah, I think the part I appreciate most about RPAG, and this is really rooted in its founding, is it was started by advisors for advisors. And so you can just tell the way in which the system is tailored, the features that are embedded throughout, the way in which it integrates is just always very advisor centric. And probably the thing that's kind of jumped out to me the most was so much of what we do as retirement plan advisors is process orientated. And I think what RPAG does best is establishing that process and then providing you the tools and resources you need to maintain that process over time. I think probably the biggest thing, and this is something we talk about all the time, is, and there's an old saying out there, I forget exactly who it's attributed to, it might be Jeff Bezos, who basically talks about, as a business owner, and this is, I think, true for any business, you should focus on what makes your beer taste better and outsource anything else. And while, I don't really view RPAG as sort of outsourcing our investment analytics, I think what it allows us to do is focus more of our time on our actual client relationships and the things that truly move the needle in terms of enhancing financial security and boosting employee outcomes. So our time isn't spent coming up with these like bespoke investment reviews and whatnot. So much of that is systematized that then we could spend more time doing the in-person employee education, doing the fiduciary training, doing some of these other value add items, and then still trusting that we have a prudent process for how we're monitoring the investments and some of the more quantitative aspects of our job. I think that the core components of our fiduciary responsibility, right, which is monitoring the investments and monitoring and benchmarking the plan fees. I think RPAG has done a fantastic job of developing really robust tools that are also very systematic and I would say repeatable in nature. As you kind of get the best of both worlds of providing a really independent and in-depth analysis while also creating some scalability and sort of repeatability for advisory firms that are kind of in growth mode, but still want to make sure that they're doing what's in the best interest of their clients. I think being able to speak to the aggregate expertise and influence that RPAG provides, and that sort of takes the form of a bunch of different things, right? On one hand, it's showing that, hey, we are a collection of thousands of advisors and trillions of assets, and that our investment monitoring process is very tried and true. And we've seen that, for a decade plus, and that gives us a level of, I would say, like credibility and validation when we're presenting to maybe like $1 billion retirement plan where maybe Lebel Harriman doesn't have as much experience in that type of arena. But it also, I think, things like leverage, whether it's trying to negotiate lower cost investment options, CITs, again, all of that collective influence provides a locally owned firm like Lebel Harriman sort of the clout of a national advisory firm while still being able to maintain the culture of a locally owned firm. It's definitely no secret in the industry that a lot of the large aggregators and national advisory firms are beginning to leverage their scale in negotiating proprietary CITs with fund managers. And I think for independent advisory firms, that does represent a huge potential risk in being able to tap into the scale of RPAG for purposes of achieving similar or even in some cases better CIT pricing is significantly important, not just, operating in the best interest of our clients and providing, their employees the lowest cost investment options available, but even from a defensive standpoint, as we think about retaining our existing clients and not having our clients have to choose between going with an independent, really true objective fiduciary and then going with what might be a less expensive option because of some of that proprietary CITs. It kind of allows us to continue to focus on our independence and fiduciary duty while still being able to meet some of the sort of the fee compression and pressures around investment pricing. I feel like RPAG helps us retain like all of our clients. Because I think one of the things that and part of this is, we've kind of conditioned our clients to a certain extent, but it's allowed us to do this, which is, again, really to reinforce the importance and sort of like the beauty of a really in-depth fiduciary process. And I think that's ultimately why a lot of our clients stay with us, is because, put it in the words of Bill Belichick, sort of trust the process. And that's where, I think, again, RPAG has done such a fantastic job of thinking through that full scope process, from the fiduciary training modules to the plan governance documents like committee charter, investment policy statement, to then the actual adjudication of that process in the form of the investment review, stable value analysis, fee benchmarking, right? You've really provided that holistic environment for the process to live in. And so that's, I think, helped contribute to a high level of trust within our clients. And then just the time savings alone allows us to then go out and better market ourselves to centers of influence and to prospective clients. So that's kind of the two areas that I would say. I know it's like speaking somewhat in broad brushstrokes, but it's so hard to isolate it down because it sort of permeates itself in a number of different ways. This is probably one of the best things about RPAG, and I think for any other retirement plan advisors, they'll appreciate this because we are sort of on an island. Like, I always refer to our industry as like the redheaded stepchild of the wealth management and financial advisory world, because we are kind of marooned on an island and sort of quirky. And I think RPAG provides a level of community, and some of the biggest insights I've gotten and the most I've ever learned is often through attending some of the advisory council meetings or the national conference, and just having an opportunity to network and to discuss these type of kind of nerdy topics with other 401k advisors. There's really, with the exception of, some of the major industry events like Napa's 401k Summit, there's very little opportunity, particularly for independent advisors, to go beyond their little echo chamber at their firm and to hear from other advisors who have made this industry their life work, like what we have, and to hear about things that are going well, that aren't going well. And that's been a huge piece for us. RPAG is built for the independent advisor who's looking to grow and to create a level of internal process amidst sort of the chaos that exists within the fiduciary and 401k world. And I would say, if you're kind of on the fence of joining RPAG, I think of it more than just the process itself. Think of it as the network of advisors you're joining. Think of it in terms of the leverage that the organization provides to you. And then I also would say, think about the direction in which the industry is going and the direction in which RPAG is going. And I feel as confident and as excited as I ever have in my 10 years of working with RPAG about the direction they're heading in and the investments they're making in terms of their technology and their services. And so I would say now would be the perfect time to sort of get on board the rocket ship.